Buy online products for your family and friends in the Gambia, Senegal, Nigeria or Mali. Baluwo, better than sending money.
For the first time in the history of the Gambia, Gambia Printing Publishing Corporation proudly introduces the Biliomatic exercise book printing machine. The machine has the capacity to print more than 20,000 books per hour. Yes, 20,000 books per hour. It also prints magazines, newspapers, calendars, flyers, normal books and all kinds of printed documents plus items at affordable prices. With the Biliomatic printing machine, GPPC can now render high quality and non-size restricted printing service supply across the sub-region. Rush now and partner with GPPC for all your public and private printing service needs. Print with us today and you'd be offered highly professional, reliable and efficient service delivery by our team of experts. The Gambia Printing and Publishing Corporation is here to meet all demands and is reliable at all times. For more info, contact us on 437-4493 or 437-4402. GPPC is Gambian and it's yours.
Welcome to the Brunch on Kerr Fatou Live. I'm Lamintam. This is our weekly look at current affairs over the last 7 days. This week, the Gambia government has announced there have been an attempted coup d'etat involving soldiers from the Gambia Armed Forces. Why didn't many people believe it? We'll also talk about the arrest of prominent opposition leader Mamadou Sabally. Where and how was he arrested and what next in his case? We'll have his lawyer to tell us all what happened to Mamadou Sabally. Was his arrest connected or not connected with the reported attempted coup? Find out all in the next 1 hour. I'm with Demba Jawo, former information minister, journalist, veteran journalist, and Gambian affairs commentator. Jawo, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And Abdoulie is a lawyer representing Mamadou Sabally, but a member of the civic society and a prominent member of the Gambian legal profession. Abdoulie, welcome to the Brunch.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tam.
We're supposed to have Samsidin Sar, our security expert, but unfortunately, we can't have him now because of other emergencies. But first of all, we go back to the major story of the week. The Gambia government announced on Wednesday that there have been an attempted coup d'etat involving some 7 soldiers of the armed forces, 5 of which we now know, according to the government's updated press release, have been arrested, but 2 more are at large. The statement did not say how was the coup executed or the coup attempt discovered, but it has said it is still investigating and the arrested men are helping security forces. Since the attempted coup was announced, many Gambians have expressed doubts on social media about the authenticity of the coup. Many argued that the names of the soldiers that have been named are too junior to be able to attempt a coup. Others said the very fact that some names have not been completely stated suggests that the government was not sure of what actually it was saying in the statement. So we have all those various opinions being expressed about the coup. The government has still not gone further to explain how the coup was discovered. But we guess, of course, that is a matter of investigations as the men supposedly involved in the coup are being investigated. Now, we have various commentaries that we will read for you from different people, different opinion about the coup attempt. First of all, let me ask you, Demba Jawo, veteran journalist, when you heard of the coup, what was your immediate reaction up to now, in your understanding? What's your reaction to this?
Thank you very much. I honestly, I wouldn't doubt probably that maybe there was talk about coup d'etat or anything of that insurrection of any that of sort. But I think there are a lot of gray areas in the government statement. I mean, in the first place, we've seen a little bit of contradiction between the government itself and the army, because I mean, this the rumor of a coup was first, I think, broken by one online newspaper, Al-Kamba Times, and according to them, when they spoke to the army's spokesman, what he told them was that it was not true. There was no attempted coup. What they were doing was a drill, So, and then a few hours later, then the government came out with a statement saying that there was actually a coup attempt. So you can see that contradiction. And the very fact that also the people they have mentioned are very, very junior officers, and we know in the army, you must reach a certain, position before you can have access to the armory and the arms and other things. And I cannot see how anybody can conduct a coup in this country without getting access to the armory. And the other thing is also that we saw them mention certain names of people who have kind of run away, people who are at large. Yeah. And the funny thing is that they didn't get their full names. All they had was their, family names, which was very. It shows you that there was no coordination between the government and the army. Yeah. Because if actually these people were mentioned as taking part in this attempted coup, we would expect them for the army to know who these people are. If you say they've disappeared, then you must know them. We just can't say Baji or Jadama or whatever and stop there. I think something definitely, there is a gray area. Either they have not done their homework well, or they have not done the investigation well before they came out in the public. But I think something definitely was not quite right in the way they've done it. And I think, whatever the case, we don't need a coup in this country. And Gambians have definitely learned a lesson from the past. There is no way that Gambians will welcome another coup. And also, it's suicidal for anybody to attempt a coup in this country with the economic around. No, I don't think. I don't think.
What Pavlis, do you think the government will, ridicule themselves or expose themselves to ridicule by stage managing a coup d'etat when it actually did not happen?
Well, that's a good question. Why should the government go to that extent to announce that there was an attempted coup when actually there is none? Well, that's a question anybody would ask. Yes. Why should the government go to that level?
Government would
of course, others are talking about. A week before the announcement of this attempted coup, we heard what Yahya Jammeh said, bragging that he was coming back and nobody is going to stop him from coming back and taking over the country. Well, we heard that. And then, a few days later, we had this kind of attempt. Is it a possibility that, the government is trying to give that air of insecurity so that the economic forces can stay longer than, because, Gambians have been clamoring for economic to get out of the country.
Yes. It's common economic, particularly the Senegalese contingent. We are not very popular in recent times.
So if the government, can give that air of insecurity, probably, that can, silence those people who have been asking economic to go out. It's all a possibility. But anyway, I'm sure maybe later on we'll get more details about, whether actually this was a real coup attempt or something. Yeah.
You mentioned, and many people observe, the conspicuous absence of the input of the Gambia Armed Forces or the Ministry of Defense. The statement didn't come from any of them. It came from the government spokesman. The army didn't say, I can say they didn't say anything at all. And if they were to be part of the process, they wouldn't have got the names incomplete.
Well, that's the most interesting.
So it suggests that the army, it's not particularly, they don't have any input in the press statement that came out. Otherwise, they wouldn't have incomplete names, no ranks.
Well, that's it. That's the most interesting part of it. It appears the government was so hasty in coming out with their statement without coordinating with the army and getting the right information that they should put before the public. But honestly, there is a little bit of contradiction between what the army said to the Al-Kamba Times and what actually the government came out with. So I think they should have reconciled all that before they came out to the public. But something definitely is not quite. It doesn't sound quite right. I think the government need to get their facts. Need to get their act together before coming out with more information to the public. Yeah.
For more clarification.
Exactly.
Needs to come from the government.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes, the Honorable Abdoulie Fatou, ex-choir or lawyer. What was, as members of the civic society and individually, what was your initial reaction? And up to now, from the information you have, what's your impression of the whole thing?
Well, just before I answer, I want to say to the viewers that the three of us actually, it's like a reunion because three of us used to work
the Observer.
At the Observer.
It's a daily Observer here.
You know, a long time ago, at least 26 years ago. So Mr. Jawo, D.A. Jawo was our editor and Lamin Chan was his sponsor, and I was a very young rookie reporter.
That's right.
So it's a pleasure to be here again. No, my initial reaction, because of what this country went through as a result of July 22nd, 1994. So my initial reaction was, this is almost taking us back to the dark ages, to a really brutal history, of our country. So as you know, as a matter of principle, it was just this complete unreserved condemnation of any attempt whatsoever to remove a democratically elected government. But again, even more worrying was the fact that at the time, you assumed that there was truth in the claims, that perhaps this seemed to be a new phenomenon in West Africa, in Mali, in some of the other
Burkina, Guinea. Mali, was said to be an infectious coup, then transmitted Burkina.
Yes, so that thing, like, you know what, it looks like at one point we were strengthening our democracy in West Africa, but it looks like for some reason we're going backwards. So that was my initial reaction on the principle of removing a democratic elected government. So interfering with the sovereign will of the people. However, as new information continue to emerge in relation to government press releases, the first one and the subsequent one, and the seeming lack of any involvement of the army in the entire process. I think it's really made a lot of people suspicious as to whether indeed this was a genuine coup planning or attempt, or probably some disgruntled soldiers,
or a weak intelligence conclusion, yes,
premature conclusion. So maybe some disgruntled soldiers, also some just expressing dissatisfaction, something of that sort, but just thoughts rather than any cohesive planning to do something. And perhaps somebody didn't hint of that, but a lot of people seem to have, after the initial announcement, it looks like how the public have digested the matter. People have now taken a step back to say, hang on a minute, a coup d'etat is a very serious issue.
It's a very
so if there was a genuine attempt, then you believe that that the entire coordination and the response and everything should be a little bit more than what we are saying.
More tangible in terms of operations.
That perhaps even the information that the official spokesperson would be very invisible in this. Perhaps said, but it would probably be the intelligence chiefs and the army commander and the army PRO to be really giving briefings as to what is happening, the level of investigations, and perhaps even giving some information, probably even taking immediate weapons that may have been seized, that these weapons were put at one place as a result of the attempt, but the fact that none of that is happening, the army do not seem to have made any formal statement or any informal in this, and these are from the allegation, these are members of the army, of the armed forces.
That's the question we put to the army, PRO, but we haven't got any reply yet. That is, okay, I mean, a coup attempt is seriously damaging to the reputation of the army. This army, this command at least have been trying everything possible to make sure that the image of the army is very, very clean and impeccable.
Absolutely.
Now, if suddenly they should say they are staging a coup d'etat, I think it's the prerogative of the army themselves to take a lead and explain to the people, no, we are not taking a coup d'etat, we have not staged a coup d'etat.
Absolutely.
Or this, yes, there have been people, rock elements who have staged a coup d'etat, but the army is conspicuously silent. That does not help the situation, and it only lends credence to the doubting Thomases who was every day saying that there wasn't a coup. So I think the army is obliged actually to consult with the government and come out with a lot more explained, detailed explanation of what happened. That will help.
But maybe.
But then, of course, I can't imagine also how serious a coup d'etat is. I don't think any government will expose itself to ridicule by state managing a coup d'etat when it actually did not happen or it did not plan. I can't imagine any government will do that. But so it may be.
Jammeh used to do that.
Well,
we are well aware that used to.
Jammeh, you mean for imagine or real?
Yeah.
But again,
yes.
Government may have acted in good faith, perhaps.
Yes, maybe on some intelligence.
Maybe on some intelligence.
Yes.
This may be wrong intelligence or premature intelligence. But for government, again, government has to take something like seriously. So maybe if intelligent chiefs, if certain individuals report claims of some individuals, even one individual, and those individuals are arrested. So government probably thought that it's foiled as long as you arrested them and didn't you foiled the coup. But afterwards government said may through engagement with the army senior pilot realized that hang on a minute,
it is not as we
thought. But to also come out to say it wasn't. So I think, but again, I am of the view that perhaps new information may emerge later that may perhaps clarify this issue, because it's really not very clarified.
But in any case, I think, it's the army that was have taken the lead in this, trying to inform the people. Certainly not the government spokesperson, because the army is part of the government, but definitely the army is an institution of its own. And when a serious accusation is leveled against the army on this particular case, I think they should be taking the lead.
Because over the last 6 years or so, what has been bandied around all around the world is that the Gambian army, under the dictatorship, was all sort of things have been said about it. So this new army command is trying to really working very hard to repair that reputation. So if suddenly we should hear that members of the same army have staged in a coup d'etat, it doesn't help their reputation
to come out.
So that's why it's all the more reason the army should really come out and explain. Now let's listen to this analysis by Sharif Samsidin Sar. He was former army commander and himself a security expert. He said at the beginning he had his doubts, but after talking to people behind the scenes, he wanted to believe himself that there might have been some movement or some kind of a plan to hold a mutiny, and he said that is what is meant by a foiled coup. He said when he had the PRO, he said he had the PRO saying that there might have been a drill which must be misunderstood for it. But later on, after talking, he think that the government statement was actually correct. He said people must not trivialize or downplay the importance of who is good or not good enough to successfully carry out a coup d'etat. He said that is total absurdity, because it is not only correct to say that only, he said only inexperienced critics will take the notion that non-commissioned officers lack the competence to successfully organize a coup. He said a coup, according to military detonation, is nothing but a mutiny aimed at undermining the legality and order in which the security establishment of the state is anchored. It is absolutely illegal and punishable by death. So what he is trying to say is that it is not just wise to say that these people are too genuine to be able to stage a coup. He said that notion is absurd. Non-commissioned officers have been known to stage coup d'etats. And what is a coup d'etat? He said that is if there are plans to organize a mutiny against established order. So he said after talking behind the scenes, he didn't say who he talked to, but he said after talking behind the scenes, he believed there was indeed some sort of a plan to stage a mutiny. But then, of course, like I said,
but that statement doesn't seem to be very, even that in itself, doesn't seem to be very emphatically convincing. It is saying that. So hence, well, for somebody who is a former,
much to clear the doubts anyway.
Yes. So he's former army chief. Well, senior army officer, and having had the privilege of speaking to insiders, and that statement is still
and
saying
himself having to cross the coup because in '97 there was a carton attack, whether there was a coup or not, an attack on the barracks, and he was there in the center stage explaining what happened.
Yeah, but what is important is that regardless of whether there was a coup or not, the Gambia particularly
doesn't want it.
Yahya Jammeh destroyed this country. July 22nd really destroyed this country. Destroyed the country legally, politically, and socially. So this country doesn't need a coup. Whether there was a coup attempt or not, we don't need a coup. We don't need a coup in this country. We don't need a coup in the sub-region.
Okay. Now let's talk about the security context that various commentators have been saying that, okay, there can be resentment. There definitely must exist resentment within the armed forces. I mean, the continuous presence of foreign troops is not really what the army themselves like, whether they talk about it or not. And the historian said this is the kind of situation we had back, in the post-1981 coup attempt. We had Senegalese troops here until one day, Abdoulie withdrew all of them. There was a security vacuum. The Nigerians came. What happened? The coup d'etat was formed because Gambian soldiers didn't want a foreign command, etc. So, it boils down to the fact that how are we going to solve this problem of the Gambia government relying on its security forces and not foreign forces? So how do we eliminate, if there is such a resentment in the army, how do we do it? How do we end the term of economic?
Well, of course, there is as we said, there is resentment within the army. That is quite obvious. Certain cadres of the army, certain sections of the army are definitely not happy with the fact that the Gambian security forces seem to be sidelined in favor of the economic forces, in certain aspects regarding the security of the country. And that is, no security force will like that kind of a situation. So you cannot, definitely say that everybody is happy with the situation. There are some disgruntled elements, and that could lead to anything. Even though I'm not implying that probably these people who have been accused of trying to stage a coup are among those ones, but definitely that is a possibility, and the government needs to address that. In fact, Gambians have constantly been calling for the withdrawal of the economic forces, that we don't need them here.
Surveys conducted by
absolutely. It's quite obvious that a majority of Gambians do not want the the economic forces to continue, because as far as we are concerned, we have got our security forces who are capable of maintaining security in this country. But why? Recently we heard that they have actually even extended their mandate here for another year. I think that is definitely, it will just fuel the resentment of foreign security forces in our country, particularly the Senegalese security forces who are stationed in Fonyi, and some people actually see them as just here to do the bidding of the Senegalese government against the rebels across the border. We've had the recent cases of some people being killed there, regular killing of people on the border there, and it is attributed to the Senegalese security forces. So you see, this is going to cause more and more resentment against the continuous presence of foreign forces in this country. I think the government needs to address that aspect of it.
So, there was this security reform that's been talked about. That is what should have, solved this problem. By now, we should have our security reformed, and probably what people will call Republican army, an army whose business will just be to look after the day-to-day protection of our borders and our sovereignty. But the security sector have not been done. For all intents and purposes, the government would always say, we have done this, we have not, but tangibly, nothing has been achieved. Perhaps that is what is contributing perhaps to this.
I agree that is a very important factor. But as you said, the Army High Command have been doing great. They've been doing very, very well to try to, to change the negative image that the army had in the past. Definitely they've been doing very well. But the so-called security sector reform that they have, made so much noise about is virtually nowhere to be seen. Nothing virtually, as far as we the ordinary people are concerned. There is nothing reformed within the security force. It's the same security apparatus that Yahya Jammeh left here is still intact. So definitely the security sector reform has not been working. Well, at least to the naked eye, as far as we the ordinary people are concerned.
So we condemn the coup, or whether it's an attempt, imagine or real. There is no place for coup.
Absolutely, we don't need a coup d'etat. We've already learned our lessons under the Yahya Jammeh regime, and we definitely don't need the army again in this country. No. And as I said, it is even suicidal for anybody within the army, as the situation is right now, to try to take a coup d'etat, because the civilian population will not accept it. As Abdoulie, Fatou and others said, never again. We'll never definitely.
Never again.
We never accept the security forces to lead us again. And even with that, with the foreign forces who are here, they will not sit back and look at. So I think it's suicidal for anybody even to attempt that.
Can I make a quick? But what DA was saying in relation to security sector reform, I think it's one of the declaring failures in terms of the transition, because this is linked to the National Development Plan. It's supposed to be, so you've had the Jammeh Commission, the TRRC, and some of the other changes. And security reform was supposed to be, actually at one point, it was probably, apparent to TRRC, one of the poster channels of this government, because obviously the way Yahya Jammeh politically institutionalized the military, the entire security institution. So, and the way he left, we knew there were elements that were still loyal. So you would have imagined that reforming those institutions would have been one of the primary priorities, because what will happen is, like both of you alluded to, economy cannot be in the Gambia forever. At some point, they will have to, those bilateral or multilateral arrangements will have to cease, and they'll have to leave the country. And then the responsibility of protecting the territorial sovereignty and integrity of the country will now naturally and legally revert back to our own security, our police, army, and the others. At the moment, there seems to be a vacuum. And unless it is dealt with, unless this reform agenda is pursued and accomplished, we may revisit some of this problem 10 years from now. Whether it is Barrow's government or another government, we may be confronted with mutinies or disturbances of that nature to our democratic orders, because if there is a lack of that organization, because Yahya Jammeh for 22 years, Yahya Jammeh really seriously undermined the army. So I don't think that should be taken. So perhaps, regardless of whether, we're not linking this to what happened, but probably upon reflection, this is the more reason why government needs to get that back on track, to really, because that is not only about Barrow or anybody, that is about the security and the safety of the Gambia.
Yeah, and you mentioned, Jawo, that well, coincidentally, perhaps, Jammeh was talking about insinuating that he was going to come back, nobody could stop him, and then suddenly there are reports of the coup. People might naturally link them. But are we not now familiar with Jammeh's idle talking, if you like? Some critics will say, oh, he's delusional. Some will call it utterances since he left power. Did anybody take Jammeh's threat seriously now?
Well, maybe not. As you said, people are now, we should get used to Yahya Jammeh making those wild statements and other things.
But then there are others who still think
well, of course,
there are people who are just disciples to Jammeh. Whatever he said, they believe.
They will believe him. And I'm sure the government also is not just going to, take everything for granted. So, they will do anything to kind of counter it, either directly or indirectly. So probably some people are saying that this announcement of an attempt coup is a kind of indirectly trying to counter Jammeh, giving the impression to ECOWAS and the economic people that, there is still a...
in the beginning, when he speak, the government will come with a press statement condemning him. But now I think they're tired of it.
Yeah. Well, probably this coup announcement is another response to. It's all possible. So we are not sure. It's a possibility, giving the impression to ECOWAS that Jammeh is still a threat and we should take it seriously.
In politics.
Right.
Well, many people said this kind of utterances would only remove any sympathy anybody may have for him now, even because he seems to be interfering in the politics.
Well, of course, Jammeh is definitely irrelevant to the Gambia. I mean, he will never come back and rule this country again. Of course, as a citizen, probably at one stage he can be allowed to come back to this country. But to be a leader of this country again, I don't think Gambians will ever allow Jammeh to
said
lead
he will
this
come,
country.
and when he comes, maybe people like you who don't want, he will not work with him. He would not be in his cabinet. He will be the last person he will think of.
Jammeh is definitely not. It's not an important factor as Gambian politics is concerned. Again, in fact, these statements are not even doing good to
himself. I mean, some people say he's exposed his own helplessness, or something like that. But then people still, they said we must take him seriously because there are people who are really, really, really. They believe in him and they will act in his.
Now, as I said, he is relevant again. Jammeh cannot come back to this country as a head of state again. No, his term is finished. Probably he's frustrated and he's regretted, all that happened because he was the cause of his own downfall. I mean, but it's too late in the day. There is no way that Jammeh can come back to this country as a head of state again.
There are people who said, well, okay, much as we are very much opposed to coup d'etats, but governments around West Africa, we talk about this might be implications or byproducts of the coup d'etat in Mali that proved such infectious. Many people argue that, governments, democratically elected governments in West Africa, in order to avoid coup d'etats or adventurous soldiers trying to attempt one, they must respect the constitutions and the voice of their own population. Particularly Senegal, they said Senegal will claim to be the president of the African Union or the European Union. There are talks there about President Sall wanting an ambition to stay on for another term, despite the constitution said he can only be there for 2 terms. Such kind of behaviors, many people said, are the greed ingredients that leads to coup d'etats or attempted coup d'etats.
I agree.
There's another point.
Honestly, I agree that the governments need to have a very clear roadmap as to, respecting the constitutions of Senegal is a good example. Macky being the chairman of the African Union, definitely he should have led a good example as far as respecting the constitution is concerned. Of course, the Senegalese jurists argue that Macky is he has the right to go for another term because he's operating on a new constitution which came after his end of his first term. But that constitution says 2 terms, 2 terms of 5 years. And so he's just starting his first term of 5 years. So he has a constitution they're arguing. But the thing is, I think Macky would just do justice to Africa and Senegal if he decides not to go for at that time, because that is going to cause trouble in Senegal. There is absolutely no doubt about that. And any trouble in Senegal, definitely Gambia would be, a victim as well. So I still believe that Macky is just playing his time because he knows that the moment he announced that he is not going for Ethiopia, his party is going to in chaos because everybody would want, and that is going to. So, but I still feel. I still have a feeling that, in his New Year message, maybe this week or next week or whatever, when the New Year message is, he may say something clear on that. That's what I feel. I still believe that Macky is not going for it.
Everything on the ground points to the fact.
Well, of course, because he's keeping quiet, he's not saying anything. So everybody is speculating.
And there are psychophants going around.
Of course, campaigning for him to go for it. So but I'll be disappointed. I'll be disappointed if he decides to go for a third term. I still feel that, in his New 3-year message, he's going to say something clear. That's my feeling is. And in the case of the Gambia also, I think President Barrow, I mean, even though he has the Gambian constitution is silent, he can go forever. Yeah. But if I were him, I would announce that he is not going for a third term. Definitely, I mean, that would help the situation. That would help the situation greatly.
Because
he promised people that he was going for 3 years. Yes. He has reneged on that. Yes. Now he's gone for a second term. Yes. If I were him, definitely he should make it quite clear that he's not going for a third term, because that would help the situation.
It would. Uncertainty.
Yeah.
Nobody will ever have an ambition.
Absolutely. That's the only way that we can avoid this kind of insurrections from the army, and not only Gambia and Senegal, but the whole of the sub-region.
No matter how hellish or no matter how a failure is, we have only a certain time here.
Exactly.
So everybody will be certain.
Everybody will be willing to wait for that.
It helps a lot.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about. We know that so far the people who have been arrested with the coup, according to the government statement directly, are soldiers. We learned about the arrest of Mamadou Sabally. He's the opposition campaign manager for the opposition United Democratic Party. The police said he's been investigated in connection with a video where he was alleged to have said that we will take the country from President Barrow before the local government elections. This is what the police said he's been investigated about. A lot of commentators, activists have said what he had said is not really enough to warrant his arrest, but the police said they will investigate. Now we heard that he probably may not, when we are expecting that he perhaps will be released within the 72 hours, he's now perhaps may not be released until the new year. So his lawyer, Abdoulie Fatou, is in the studio. Abdoulie, what exactly happened to your client? In fact, why was he arrested?
Okay, on Wednesday, the 14th of this month, some UDP youth TikTokers visited Sabally's residence in Kerr. They wanted to have an audience with him, and they wanted to, in a way, congratulate him for his election to position of campaign manager for the UDP. So he was addressing that group in his residence, and the audio, the entire audio, is just under 11 minutes.
11 minutes?
Yes, so it's about 10 minutes 54 or something like that. So in which he firstly started talking about the power of social media, the influence that social media can play in modern society. So he was referring to the young TikTokers that they have important platform. They have an important platform in which, in terms of messaging. So he talked about the UDP as a political party being labeled as always insulting and stuff like that, and he advised them to use the TikTok platform to really reverse that perception of the people. So he advised them to go out there, use their voices, use their platforms to sort of like convert people of those strong perceptions. And in the audio, he made specific reference to people saying the UDP always, supporters always insulting. He said, but you can do this to reverse that and do it respectfully. Do not engage in any insults, respect the law. But he also said that by doing that, the UDP would go on, he used the word aggressive political mobilization to form a majority, and made particular reference to the local government elections and the mayor of Banjul and the mayor of Kerr and the wonderful work and achievements that developments they've achieved since they came into office, and that to their mandates to continue and stuff like that. So in that he said we will in a way will take over the country. So but when you listen to the entire audio, not the 19 seconds where all that you can say is we will take over. You know, we will take the country from him. Then you would understand the context, because context is important in anything. I can make a 5-second speech or statement, but if it cut into 2.5 seconds, it may give
in fact, we journalists have often been accused of that. People will say, okay, the journalists only take the parts that they want to go down with, but this is the context. I said. What I had was the thing, maybe 90 seconds thing you talk about, where he was saying we'll take the country from Adama Barrow even before the local government election. Many people would have thought that was really a wrong statement, because there is no legitimate means of taking Adama Barrow out of power until 2026. So if somebody said we're taking him out of power before the local government elections, one would have think that naturally you are talking about illegal means. Okay, don't you think that's why and of course in the wake of what happened, the alleged coup d'etat, so you will naturally think that Sabally might be called in to be questioned whether he has any connection with what has been reported to have happened.
Okay. Well, okay, but before you comment, I think, as you said, the context is very important here. Taking over the government from Adama Barrow and taking over, the country from Adama Barrow may be a little bit different, because taking over, that is getting public opinion away from Adama Barrow and to the opposition.
Not
necessarily he can still be in power, but the whole, the public opinion kind of shifted from him to the opposition. That is taking over the country, not taking over from him as a president. I don't know, anyway, but it can have some.
How did he put it? We take Adama Barrow out of power before the local.
Mbanko Talabule. And the literal meaning of that, in a way, is like they were saying that you take the country by
take the narrative from
the narrative. Yes. Exactly. So, but if you just listen to, so this was just roughly 11 minutes.
Yeah.
The entire statement, 11 minutes. What was predominantly circulating in social media is 19 seconds. So 19 seconds out of 11 minutes is not a fair representation. What the audience would not have had the benefit of the context in which it was said, because, like I said, Sabally was advising these people to use their platform to sell you the peace agenda and to basically convert people of those perceptions, the perception that this was a party that insults and stuff like that. So he was telling them, desist from insulting, do not break the law, but use your voices, use your platform to amplify by going on an aggressive political mobilization, by which we will form a majority, political majority. So in the context of what Sabally was saying, because you cannot be preaching peace in the entire context of saying that this is the perception of the people, but at the same time you are preaching some form of an illegal act of removing it democratically. I don't think that was the audience. If you wanted to make, I don't think it's a group of young TikTokers that would have been the audience. So what he was saying in terms of forming a majority, and he even made reference to the mayors of Banjul and KM to win because of the work that they have been doing. So it was along the lines of taking that support, forming a majority. So by which period, if you were able to form the majority in terms of in the public space, that means you've seized power, not physically going to the State House and removing Barrow from the seat. So when he was arrested and detained, so the
police said at the time that was the video or audio that he's been investigated about. They didn't say much.
And they didn't know there was. So what happened is, so Sabally went, they asked him, and I have to say the police were fixated on this phrase, this just 19 seconds, not few seconds of what did he mean by Banko Talaba. And Sabally said, hang on a minute, this is just a snapshot, a minuscule of the broader conversation. And he requested his phone. His phone. So he was able to play the panel the entire 11 minutes or 10 minutes 54. In which you hear him say exactly some of the things that I've been saying. to give it context, yet the police wanted to, further clarification. What did he actually mean? And he said, "Well, this is what I meant." And Sabally was with the belief that the police came with a preconceived mind. Because this is what they've had. So because of the events of the previous day, or the same day as well, the rumors of a coup, they came with, but I have to clarify this issue. The police did not in any way link him whatsoever to that.
I see.
But I think they just wanted to know what did he mean by that. But you can also understand the sensitivity, because there was, and the government can be a little bit jittery and stuff like that. Is he privy to information that we don't know?
Yes.
Let him clarify this. But at no point
that the police link,
for example, saying if you've spoken to these people, none of that. It was the entire focus of the interrogation was focused on this. Not even the audio was what did he mean by Bankota Labule.
Okay.
So but Sabally he was arrested around 4 or 5 on Wednesday. So he was interrogated at the PIU where we were. I was there, and he wrote his statement. He wrote about 5-6 pages of statement, and to say exactly what he meant, the context in which this was said, and that kind of stuff. So, and the interrogation kind of finished at around 10 o'clock, 10:30 on Wednesday, that sort of time.
At night?
At night, yeah, about 10 o'clock or something. But since then, not a single Gambia police force officer spoken to Sabally whatsoever. So when they finished with him around that 10 o'clock on Wednesday, they didn't speak to him at all. Actually, no member of the police panel, because the panel was comprised of the major crime and serious crime from Banjul, they came. So none of them came on Thursday. None of them visited him yesterday.
Friday.
Friday, yes.
Okay.
So apart from that 2-3 hours of interrogations, nothing has happened afterwards, so far as Sabally is concerned. If government was really trying to link his statement to an alleged coup, I think the interrogation would have gone forward than 10 o'clock. One, the police would have revisited him on Thursday and on Friday, because if they believe, if from what they're telling us, the treason, for example, from what we say, some of the court documents, if this matter was being treated with such seriousness, I think you've got the guy in your custody. You will be talking to him to give you information on what you want, as in who has he been talking to, none of that stuff. So I genuinely believe that perhaps because of the events, and that's a fact, I told the police there as well. I told the police that had it not been the events of the last 24 hours, the rumor of an alleged coup, we would not have been here. Because people have made 10 times war statement. People have sometimes said, we will remove President Barrow there, or even by force, that kind of stuff. But that doesn't mean that physically go and remove that they will be relentless in their pursuit of forming a majority of electoral, legal means. So, but Sabally also made in his statement categorically clear that as a principle, is against any unlawful means of removing democratic elected governments.
So what happened since then? Wednesday, since they finished, they didn't come back. They didn't come back on Thursday. They didn't come back on Friday. Suddenly we hear that some court has, now ruled that he should stay behind or in detention for up till January 5th or so. I went to visit him. I was there in the morning on Friday with his wife. But because knowing that we were going into a weekend, and Monday being a public holiday, so I was concerned about his prolonged detention, because I know how our security outfits work sometimes, because it's in the weekend sometimes. They may say, well, there's nothing we can do. We cannot take the person to court, even though the constitution is clear. The 72 hours, it is not segregated into weekend or working official or unofficial hours. So I was concerned about that, the mindset. So I took it upon myself so I visited the IGP exactly around this time yesterday. So I went to see the IGP. Ordinarily, I shouldn't go and see the IGP. Because there are other channels. Because I went to see the head of the panel who was in there, but I said, let me go and see the IGP. I didn't go there to go into the merits of the case, but simply to go and raise concerns as to Mr. Sabally's constitutional right
to be either be charged or released within 72 hours. And the fact that we were going into the weekend, a long weekend for that matter, I didn't want the police who had arrested him and detained him on suspicion of breaking the law. And any law that Sabally may have been broken would be sort of like a statutory, an act of parliament, something of that sort. But if you keep him beyond the 72 hours, that means you are violating his constitutional right. And that would be, to me, more of an assault than breaking if the statutory provisions of parliament. So that was my concern. And the IGP made to me very clear that come what may, that they will respect his constitutional rights. So the two options were, if we don't have anything against him, we will release him. Or we will seek an extension from court. We will file an ex parte. So that's when I started this ex parte thing, that going to court to seek seek an extension to detain him beyond the 72 hours. And he told me they were seeking legal advice. I had some hope that perhaps he might even have been released yesterday. Or certainly, because the IGP specifically mentioned that they had up to 72 hours. But that's a debate for another time, because that's another thing that the police will have to be trained about, because the police always have this mindset that when you walk through the door, they have up to 72 hours. That is not the intention of the 72-hour provision in the Constitution. Okay. The law is saying that nobody should be detained longer than it is necessary. The 72 hours should be under only exceptional circumstances, but otherwise somebody goes to a police station or anything, so you question the person in a language that they understand as reasonably as possible. Take their statements, grant them bail. But if you believe that they need to be kept longer, but here for some reason, instead of counting from 1 hour and thinking, well, it's now 10 hours, 11 hours, 24, let's release the person, it looks like they start counting from 72 hours. So they want to exhaust every minute and every second, which is wrong in principle. But in any way, they filed, it later emerged that the Attorney General's Chambers, the Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions, filed an ex parte. So an ex parte in layman term means, because any application you file in court, any document, any process, because there's always two people to a party, at least two people. So you file, so for example, this file by the state, you go and file it, but not for the matter to be determined immediately, you go and serve Sabally, so that he will have his constitutional right to respond to whatever you are seeking from court. But on this occasion, and this does happen sometimes, but normally with land matters and stuff like that, where you believe somebody is interfering and you go to court and say, but we're talking about fundamental rights and freedoms. So this application was made ex parte. That means Sabally wasn't involved at all.
Now the other part.
So it would have only been the Attorney General's Chamber lawyers and the judge, and probably this would have been in the judge's office.
Okay.
So they sought for, and they relied on a practice directive. A practice directive to say that they wanted Sabally's continuous detention, that this was the vacation and stuff. But in the ruling, the judge also told them to notify him. But I don't want to get into the merits of that particular film, since we will challenge that, because I believe that that was a heavy responsibility when you've been asked to restrict the civil liberty of an individual. Because it is a principle of law, the right to fair hearing and natural justice. Even if the court believed that they had formed an opinion on an issue and they were going to already decide, and they've decided how they're going to what decision they will take. The principle of law is the right to fair hearing is that you give the other side an opportunity to respond, particularly when the application is to restrict that person's fundamental rights. And here, remember, 72 hours is expressed in the Constitution. So I think there was two things. I am utterly disappointed with the Attorney General's Chambers. The Attorney General's Chamber has been the primary legal advisors to government. So even sometimes you can understand the police do some of these underhand tactics, but if the primary legal advisor to government to file an application of this sort, this is the same application that was filed earlier this year when General Baji and the others were arrested. And the decision on the 4th of February this year, a High Court judge released them and said, you can only detain somebody if you have charged them. What I mean, if you're going to make an application of this nature. Sabally hasn't been charged. But you're seeking his continued detention until the 5th of next month. without being charged. When there is an express constitutional provision saying that you cannot keep him beyond 72 hours.
And there is a landmark ruling in the court, a precedent, that says such a thing cannot happen.
Yeah, well, we say it's from the High Court, it's not from the Supreme Court to say, excuse me, landmark, but notwithstanding, it is a precedent.
It's a precedent.
Even though it may not be binding, because the decision was also made by another High Court judge. But it may be used as some form of...
As a good practice.
Practice, yeah. So, practice directive is a subsidiary legislation. It cannot override constitution.
So, Mr. Sabally, I know you are arguing on the legal point of view. And of course, you cannot go into the merits of the case because you...
We can, because the matter is not before the court.
It's not before the
He's not been charged.
But the thing is, what do you make of his political supporters are saying that this is politically motivated?
I believe this is politically motivated. I believe this is politically motivated because if you listen to the entire audio, if you listen to the standalone 19-second, you may come from an opinion. Different people may form different opinions. But if you've had the benefit, and the police have had the benefit of listening to the entire audio, genuinely, I believe that if the police believed that Sabally had committed a crime to warrant him to be charged with either treason or inciting violence,
they would have done so.
They would have done so. The police normally do this very, very fairly quickly. When Madi Jabate made a statement last year or so, he was charged almost 2 years ago, almost instantly. And the practice is that they almost instantly charge you. Okay? In this instance, Sabally is there for days.
So you mean they probably may listening to somebody upstairs, somebody somebody above?
I believe that is the case, but from the affidavit accompanying the application they filed in court yesterday, they said he committed a very grave, or he's suspected of committing a very grave offense, and they mentioned treason in one of in the affidavit. I would not be surprised. Actually, I am thinking that they will charge me with treason. But I think that should be a wake-up call to Gambians that we cannot. You see, Yaya Jammeh used justice sector institutions to entrench himself. He used the law.
Yes.
To sustain what he wanted to do. So he used the Ministry of Justice, he used the judiciary. We have to be honest here. He used the prisons, he used the police, he used the entire security apparatus. So to achieve some of his political objectives. So you use the law to legalize and legitimize an otherwise unlawful or political objective. We have to be careful here.
Fearing that that's the same trend.
If I were a betting man, I will 95% bet that they will charge me with treason. Because you see the reason why they will charge me with treason? Even that would be utterly ridiculous to listen to that statement and say that amounts to treason. But because treason would not be bailable. So it may be a deliberate strategy, let's charge him with treason, take him to court, he's not going to get bail. So we dump him in mile 2 for 2-3 months, just like in the Sierra Mumbai case or the others, 2-3 months, withdraw the case. If that happened, that means state justice sector institutions
has been used.
Would have used the law to victimize unfairly. So if somebody has committed an offense, Sabally is not above the law. I am not above the law. President Barrow is not above the law. Lawyer Dabo is not above the law. SO4 is not above the law. Mama Kande is not above the law. So any individual in this court who has committed an offense, the police have a right to investigate and prosecute if they believe there is evidence that can be sustained in court. What we should not allow is that in the absence of evidence that is tenable in court, for political reasons, we use the law to do wrong things. Because this is what Yaya Jammeh did for so long. And he particularly used the National Assembly to pass laws, some of the laws that the Supreme Court last week struck down as unconstitutional. Then you certain at the time, it's a fact, the judiciary actually testified, appeared at the TRRC, and they produced a position paper. And they accepted how Yaya Jammeh used the judiciary to achieve his political ends. And the Ministry of Justice as well. We have to be very, very careful here. I'm not saying that, but we have to be very, very careful. For Sabally to be charged with treason, and I think that is what they will probably do, knowing fully well that he's not going to be able to get bail. And in 2-3 months you withdraw that. See, that will undermine people's faith and confidence in the justice system. And what it also does is to begin to start creating a really bad precedent. Legacies of Yaya Jammeh. We have to respect fundamental rights and freedoms. We have to respect the rule of law. People exercising public power and public functions should always use good judgment and do the right thing.
We haven't heard from the Attorney General's chambers, but what they have done, according to the lawyer for Sabally, is that they don't seem to have acted in good faith. They've started to use the legal loophole to continue to detain him, allegedly because of political reasons. And he feared that the judicial system is being used to satisfy political end, as it has been done in Yaya Jammeh's case. From what you have explained, from what he has explained, in your independent judgment, do you think the state is right, in fact, in suggesting that, or in even seeking to detain him for an extended period of time?
Well, what is happening in the case of Sabally is definitely quite worrisome, because we've all been singing never again. But it appears that, this is beginning to look like the Yaya Jammeh playbook is still, around here. And we know that Sabally is a thorn in the flesh of the government. He's been very critical of the Barrow government, and he's been, saying quite a lot, quite outspoken. And it appears that, from what we have heard his lawyer explain, it appears that the government is trying to find some means of clipping him, getting him out of circulation.
Said, I cannot be caged. They are trying to
getting him out of circulation for a while, for political reasons, because it looks like it anyway. And I think the government needs to be very, very careful, because this is not going to tell well on the government at all if they continue to be doing this kind of thing. Of course, they can use some legal means to do what they are doing, but people have the right to also interpret it the way they feel it is right. Definitely it has some political connotation, and they need to be very, very careful about it, because it looks like, as he said, during the Yaya Jammeh era, we use the judiciary, the security sector, and every sector of the government to do their bidding. And if in what is happening in the case of Sabally, it definitely smells like exactly what Yaya Jammeh has been doing to his opponents. So I think the government needs to be very careful.
So the issue is, of course, nobody should be above the law. The government should not be afraid of prosecuting a politician just because it might be treated political. But of course, the government also must be careful not to pursue political ends out of legal matters.
Absolutely. They should be very, very careful about this, because the implication it gives to the Gambians and to to their friends abroad could be very negative on the side of the government.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
See, in the UK, for example, their laws allow, when you arrest somebody when suspicion of committing an offense, to interrogate them, and where you believe that you're building a case, but you need further hours beyond the time limit, then you may go to a magistrate to seek an extension. But normally, you have to specify reasons why you ought to be given. So normally, this is where you are questioning somebody and you believe that you extracted information, but you just need additional few hours to cement your case.
Okay.
Like I told you previously, after the police interrogated Sabally on Wednesday, they had the whole of Thursday. Nobody went to speak to him. They had the whole of yesterday. Nobody went to speak to him. But again, you go into court seeking an extension for 2 weeks when the guy is already under your custody and you're not speaking to him. So just think about the rationale. So what is your objective? If your objective is to investigate an illicit, he's there. Why are you not utilizing the time that you are allowed under the Constitution? But you're not doing that. But you go into court and say, I need 2 weeks. So if you think about
what more are you going to do in 2 weeks?
Exactly. Why are you not doing it now that you have it under your custody? So if you think about that, then that tells you the objective is not really to investigate a gentleman, but the objective is just to cage him, to keep him somewhere, and perhaps to limit. But then these are really bad precedents, because in a democracy, sometimes we may not like our views may differ. Sometimes people may say certain things that we may not particularly like, but government should not aggressively resort to deliberately restricting rights. We should expand, right? Because the more we restrict, the more we are less accommodating of dissenting views, and that starts to create an atmosphere of dictatorship. And we shouldn't go down that lane in this country again.
Well, Abdoulie Fatou is the lawyer for Mamadou Sabally, the campaign manager of the opposition UDP, who has been arrested allegedly in connection with an audio he made, supposedly saying that they will remove President Barrow from power or take the country from President Barrow before the local government elections. That's what the police said. He's been arrested in connection with, as Abdoulie said. They didn't say anywhere that his arrest is linked to the attempted coup that has been reported. But of course, Abdoulie said they had 3 days or so to interrogate him. They didn't do that. And now they are seeking, or they've already sought for him to be detained for 2 weeks more. He thinks that the government has acted not in good faith, and people have already interpreted it as a political witch hunting of a very outspoken political figure in Mamadou Sabally. Well, Demba Jawo, veteran journalist and analyst in the studio, thank you very much for your thoughts. And lawyer Abdoulie Fatou also for the update on the case of Mamadou Sabally. This will be all about it in the brunch this week. We'll be back next week. Until then, have a very good Christmas and New Year. We'll be back possibly next week if I do not indulge myself too much in the New Year festivities. Back then, thank you very much for now, and goodbye for now.
We live in a day and age where technology is creating a world without borders, filled with unlimited potential to improve the lives of the people around us. Innovarex Global Health ushers in a new way of leveling the playing field with increased access to quality healthcare services delivered at your doorstep. Our qualified professionals are equipped with state-of-the-art point-of-care testing technology to conduct tests such as kidney function, liver function, electrolyte tests, body composition, hemoglobin, A1C, and many more services with the highest efficiency in delivering results. The addition to our flagship Wellness on Wheels, more fondly known as WOW Delivery Service, brings the entire clinical experience full circle. IGH has remained committed to creating the future of healthcare delivery. Gone are the days of sending loved ones outside the country for basic medical services. Innovarex Global Health offers a new peace of mind and takes pride in delivering the quality of care we all deserve.
Islamic microfinance is becoming an increasingly popular mechanism for poverty alleviation, especially for developing countries around the world. This microfinance service adheres to the principles of Islam as a form of social responsibility. Yona Islamic Microfinance is the Islamic microfinance of choice in the Gambia, trustworthy and reliable. At Yona Islamic Microfinance, we provide savings products, current accounts, financing products in conformity with Islam. In addition, Yona Islamic Microfinance also offers local and international remittances, Takaful Fund, management of Zakat, management of Awqaf, trading and investment, and building of strategic partnerships to bring financial services to the doorstep of the poor with donor projects, madrasas, youth organizations, women groups, and farmer organizations. Make a choice with Yona Islamic Microfinance today. For more information on Yona Islamic Microfinance, call 377-2151 or 9832-151 or visit Yona head office at Tipa Garage, Bakote, or visit any Yona branch located countrywide near you.